I'm Carissa Farley, and thank you for joining me. Among other financial concerns that so many Americans have right now, worrying about your parents' health and finances is a huge one. Where do you go for information on estate planning, long-term care and nursing home issues, Medicare and Medicaid? Joining us today is Pete Losavio of Losavio and DeJean to tell us all how not to go broke paying for long-term care. Stay with us. Ask the Lawyer starts right now.
Welcome to this edition of Ask the Lawyer. Ask the Lawyer is informative and exciting. Ask the Lawyer interviews authors, speakers, and entrepreneurs in all areas of business, so you become a much more informed consumer.
Mr. Losavio's practice is limited to asset protection, life care planning, and estate and tax planning and litigation. He's certified as an elder law attorney by the National Elder Law Foundation. Mr. Losavio is a member of the Special Needs Alliance. He's admitted to practice in the states of Louisiana and Texas. Mr. Losavio obtained a Juris Doctorate degree from Louisiana State University and a Master of Law in Taxation from the University of Florida. My parents are aging, and I have all of these concerns. Why does someone need a professional to help them with this?
As a person ages, they face complex and puzzling issues. They face the challenge of obtaining government benefits to pay for much needed health care and medical care. They can't afford to pay it, so they have to turn to the government. These programs are very complex, hard to qualify for, and in some cases designed to make you destitute.
Your education and your training in this area is tremendous. Why else should somebody come to you to talk about these issues?
Well, besides my credentials, my experience, and my education, I've had personal experience in dealing with this. My mother suffered from Alzheimer's for the last 5 years of her life, and I personally took care of her, and I'm very proud of that.
So we're going to talk about a lot of these issues on the show, but if somebody needs more information, they can go to your website. You also have more information available that people can look up and research.
I do, and then I also frequently speak and have free, no obligation seminars, and they can call the office and obtain the next time that I'm speaking.
One of the things that is most confusing to me is the difference between Medicare and Medicaid.
They sound the same, and a lot of people use the words interchangeably. They'll say Medicare when they mean Medicaid, and they'll say Medicaid when they mean Medicare. They're entirely two different programs. Medicare is a federally funded health program primarily for people over 65. It is an entitlement program. You pay into the system and then you become entitled to the benefits. Even Bill Gates will qualify for Medicare. Medicaid is a means-tested program, which means that you have to meet the income and asset requirements. Medicaid provides a long-term care benefit. Medicare has a very limited long-term care benefit. Under Medicare, the maximum benefits you can obtain is about a maximum of 100 days if you meet the requirements. The reason I'm talking so much about long-term care, that's what people need when they come down with Alzheimer's or dementia or have a stroke or Parkinson's disease. A lot of people think that that long-term care, custodial care, is covered by Medicare, but when they're struck down by a catastrophic illness or dementia or something like that, they find out that Medicare doesn't provide much of a benefit, and then they have to start privately paying.
Why should someone seek advice on Medicaid?
Well, the Medicaid system is designed to help you, but the problem is it's also designed to make you destitute. So unless you plan and take some kind of action, you're going to end up becoming destitute. But with proper planning and advice, you can protect your life savings. So by seeking advice, you can protect your life savings, you can obtain quality care, and you can have a great quality of life.
My conversations with attorney Pete Losavio continue right after this. Welcome back to Ask the Lawyer. I'm Carissa Farley. Joining me today is attorney Pete Losavio. Mr. Losavio is certified as an elder law attorney by the National Elder Law Foundation, a Louisiana board certified estate planning and administration specialist, and a Louisiana board certified tax specialist. He's a member of the Special Needs Alliance and is admitted to practice by the United States Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Let's talk about how the Medicaid system works some more.
Sure. The best way to explain the Medicaid system is by example. Let's talk about a hypothetical Mr. John Smith. Mr. John Smith worked all his life at the plants.
He did well.
He did well. Yeah. He's retired. This represents.
He saved his money.
He saved his money. He enjoys hunting, as you can tell. He enjoys hunting and fishing and camping. And
he's very active.
Yeah. Sadly, though, his wife of 55 years has passed away. They had 2 children. He owns his own home that he built over 50 years ago. He has a vehicle. He's got a hunting and fishing truck that he uses.
A big truck.
Pulls his boat and trailer. He's got his RV. He inherited a family farm from his family.
And he's got some money.
This represents $200,000 here.
Okay.
He saved $200,000, and he's got $1,500 a month coming in Social Security and pension. And he's just enjoying life, even though his wife's passed away. He's still out there at that age hunting and fishing and having a good time. And then he has a stroke. And of course, when he has a stroke, he can no longer stay in his home, and he has to go into a nursing home. Not where he wants to be, just where he needs to be. And all of a sudden, he has an increase of $4,000 a month, but that's the average cost of care in Louisiana. So if you take that over a year, that adds up to $48,000. Let's just round to 50. So now he's spending $50,000 a year. So here's $200,000. The first year, these 2 bundles of money represent $50,000. It goes to long-term care. The second year, another $50,000. The third year, another $50,000.
So his savings isn't lasting him very long.
And in the fourth year, the final part of his savings is gone. So now, in order to pay for his long-term care, he has to start selling assets. So he doesn't need his truck anymore because he's in a nursing home. Doesn't need his boat and trailer, so that's okay. Doesn't need his camper, so he sells that. Now he's still got the family farm that he inherited from his family, so he sells that. Now at this point where all he has is his personal vehicle and his home and $2,000 or less, the government's going to step in and start helping him. They're going to take his $1,500 a month and they're going to give him $38 a month personal needs allowance.
$38.
$38.
Which won't pay barely for 1 prescription.
Well, that $38 has to cover his disposable diapers, his optical needs, his dental needs, his non-prescription drugs, his toiletries such as soap, deodorant, shampoo, and other items that add to the quality of life.
So how's that going to work?
Well, as you can see, it's impossible to stretch $38 that far. So those 2 children are going to start paying for those items, and that's going to cost them several $100s a month, right?
The children that would otherwise have inherited that family farm.
Right. Okay. So as you can see in this situation, Mr. Smith, although he worked very hard his whole life and was a very prudent person and accumulated, because of a stroke, has lost everything. Now, doesn't have to be that way. With proper planning and advice, he could have saved his life savings and had it available to supplement his care. And rather than his children having to pay for his care, he could have used his life savings to pay for his care. Usually, they don't have to lose anything. If they take action timely, they can protect their life savings.
Now, is that done with a prenuptial agreement? If they'd had a prenuptial, does that protect the healthy spouse?
Well, no. Now, we're not talking about prenuptial agreements. Prenuptial agreements are used a lot of times they're good for protecting against creditors. A lot of times in second marriages, people use prenuptial agreements to prevent disputes between children of a prior marriage. They're real good for that. They're of no benefit in a Medicaid planning purpose, for Medicaid planning. So what happens in that situation is a lot of times is the older couple that's remarried thinks, oh well, this prenuptial agreement's got our finances separated and we don't have to worry about what happens to each other. The Medicaid system doesn't look at it that way. The Medicaid system looks at their assets as if they were together. They don't care about that prenuptial agreement. So what happens in that situation is that spouse can end up having to pay for the other spouse's nursing home expenses and become destitute. Now again, with proper planning and advice, that doesn't have to happen. But if they don't seek advice, they're going to end up spending a lot more than they should and jeopardize their financial security.
So what we're learning here is that this is highly complicated. This is complex, and not every attorney can do this. This is something that you really need to seek the advice of somebody who specializes in this area.
This is 10,000 times more complex than the federal tax law. And the reason I say that is there's 10,000 more regulations here than there is with the Internal Revenue Code. Plus, this is not just one law. You have the federal law, you have the state law, because this is a program that is administered by the state. So the federal law sets the broad rules. The state in administering the program can set their own rules. And then you have the Center for Medicare, I know it gets complicated, that has its own policy. So when you get to this looking at an issue, you're looking sometimes at 4 different rules and regulations.
So when I was looking at my own situation with my parents, I went to an attorney and I, at first did a will, and then I did a living trust and thought that I did everything right. I think my mother has a supplement insurance package, and I thought, well, we're all taken care of, and I'm beginning to see that maybe we're not. First, let's start with a will. Does the will need to be revised if somebody's spouse goes into a nursing home or they have Alzheimer's? Do they then need to look at their will and start there?
They need to immediately review the will, because in estate planning, it's usual for the surviving spouse to receive a usufruct, or in a lot of cases, they just leave everything to the other spouse. It's an I love you will. Now, what's going to happen in that situation? You've taken those assets and you've given them to the other spouse. That spouse becomes ill or is ill. All that has to be spent down. The Department of Health and Hospitals treats the usufruct as a resource. So in that situation, because they treat it as an asset, that's what I mean when I say resource, the children's inheritance has to be spent down. So when you have the usufruct, not only does the parent end up being destitute, but the children end up losing their inheritance. So if you have a situation where one spouse becomes ill, you need to review the will to make sure and change it from having a usufruct or leaving everything to the other spouse.
So from what I understand, it's just a bad idea to wait until somebody's sick to do this planning.
Well, it's a bad idea because the way the Medicaid system is designed, they have a look-back period. That look-back period is 60 months, which is 5 years. And so they're going to look back over that period of time to see if you've made any transfers. And if you've made any transfers, they're going to consider that in determining your eligibility for Medicaid.
I have to take a break right now. This is such an interesting topic that we all need to hear about. Stay with us right now. My conversations with Pete Losavio will continue when we come right back. Welcome back to Ask the Lawyer. I'm Carissa Farley. Joining me today is attorney Pete Losavio, an attorney with Losavio and DeJean LLC in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Mr. Losavio's practice is limited to asset protection, life care planning and estate and tax planning, and long-term care. He's admitted to practice by the United States Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. So we were just talking about why you don't want to wait until you get sick, that there's a 60-month period. Why is that 60 months important?
Medicaid looks back, the Department of Health and Hospital looks back over that 60 months, and if they determine that you made any transfers that would give rise to a period of ineligibility, then they will impose that period of ineligibility. And that period of ineligibility is determined by taking the value of the gift and dividing by $4,000, which is the divestiture penalty. $4,000 is the average cost of care in the state of Louisiana. So for example, if you made a gift of $40,000, it would disqualify you for 10 months. If you made a gift of $80,000, you take 80,000 divided by 4, it would disqualify you for 20 months, and so on.
Well, I'm a little bit confused because I had, you hear different bits and pieces of information. I had heard that you can give away $13,000 per year, although I'm seeing from your visual, $13,000 isn't going to get you far, but at the time it sounded like a good idea.
Well, a lot of people confuse that because, again, there's different rules for different areas of law. The $13,000 has to do with the gift tax, the federal gift tax exclusion. There is no exemption for Medicaid purposes. So if you gave away $13,000, you don't pay any federal gift tax. But that $13,000 would cause you to become, if it was within the 60 months, that $13,000 would cause you to become ineligible for 3 1/4 months, because you take the $13,000 divided by 4. 4 times 3 is 12, and you have 1 left over. 1 over 4 is a quarter. So it'd be 3 1/4 months that you would be ineligible to receive government benefits, and that you would have to private pay. This is a real danger for people that maybe say, like, grandma's going to pay for grandchild's education, or gives to her church, or gives to her children, and she could be perfectly healthy when she did that. And then later, who knows what's going to happen to them in 60 months, because we don't know what God has in store for us.
Well, then it kind of sounds like simple gift giving isn't a good Medicaid planning strategy.
Gift giving works if you do it 60 months in advance and you know you're going to stay healthy.
Okay, this gets complicated. What if you or your spouse is already in a nursing home?
Well, there are most people don't realize this, but there are strategies that you can utilize to protect your life savings. It's never too late to protect your life savings. The only time that it's too late to protect your life savings is when you've already spent the money. Once you've spent the money, myself or anybody else can't recover it for you. But if you go seek advice before you spend it all, we can help you save whatever you have left, because there are different strategies that are available, such as annuities, work well with a married couple. We have life insurance. There's exempt transfers. There are a whole arsenal of different techniques that we can use to protect a single person or married couple's life savings.
And again, when I went to see my attorney, who's a good friend, he didn't mention any of this. He just did a will, a durable power of attorney, a physician's directive, and set up a living trust. So this is something that you really have to talk to somebody who specializes in this.
Yeah. Well, the attorney that you went to see did an excellent job of doing estate planning, because all the documents that you mentioned are what's typically used for estate planning. What we've been talking about is not estate planning. We've been talking about life care planning, Medicaid planning, and Medicaid crisis planning. Entirely, it's like what's good maybe when those documents were prepared is not good today, because that person has become ill and needs long-term care.
So now that we've kind of run over this, I'm looking at the last remaining assets, the car and the house. Do we need to do something to protect the house?
Well, a lot of people don't do anything to protect the house, and that's a mistake. And I explained to you why that's a mistake. The Medicaid recipient is in the nursing home, has $38 a month. Who's going to pay for the maintenance, insurance, and taxes, and maybe, or possibly, the mortgage note on this house? Well, it's not coming out to $38 a month, so who's going to pay that? Well, probably the children. So the children are going to be paying several $100s a month, and maybe a mortgage note. And they're going to pay that for the whole time that the parent's alive because they're interested in getting the house. Now, when the parent dies, the state shows up, the Louisiana Department of Health and Hospitals, and they say, we want to be reimbursed. And we want to be reimbursed for nursing home services, home care services, prescription drugs, and hospital services. That can add up to a lot of money. It usually adds up to be more than the value of the house. So therefore, the state of Louisiana ends up with the house. So if you don't do any planning, the state's going to end up with the house. Now, there are strategies that we can utilize to protect the house, such as mortgages, reverse mortgages, or certain transfers of the house are exempt from making a person ineligible for Medicaid. So you need to consult with somebody who can look over the various strategies and determine which one's right to protect the home.
So the revocable living trust that I had set up thinking that's used for asset protection, I wasn't thinking right, was I?
No, common misconception. Revocable living trust, or living trust, as people refer to them, are good for avoiding probate. That's their primary purpose. They're of no benefit for asset protection and can actually be harmful for Medicaid purposes because they're still an available resource. The person hasn't moved that asset out of their estate. So when they become ill, the state of Louisiana is going to say, you still have that asset. And if you put the house into the revocable living trust, they're going to make you take the house out of the revocable living trust, or if you leave it in the revocable living trust, you're not going to qualify for Medicaid.
So if this wasn't complicated and difficult enough, tell me about long-term care. A lot of times children will take their parents into the house to take care of them in the home. What are some of the mistakes that people make in doing that?
Basically, they make three mistakes. One is they do not consider the potential liability of having that caregiver in a home. Secondly, they don't consider the tax consequences of paying that caregiver. And third, they don't do any planning to considering down the road qualifying for government benefits.
A lot of times, too, people will hire somebody like a sitter to take care of a parent. Are there mistakes that are made when that's done as well? Yes,
Carissa, that's what I was talking about. When the person is hired, they have a tendency to treat them as independent contractors and not as employees. So they're treating this person as an independent contractor. Now, they don't withhold on that person. So they're not paying the Social Security, they're not paying not withholding the taxes. Now, that person probably is an employee. Now, if that person's an employee, what's the consequences? Well, the IRS is going to say that they are liable for the employer and employee share of the Social Security tax, and also the income taxes that they've failed to withhold. So that can be a potentially large liability, but that's not the largest liability. The largest liability could arise when that caregiver is lifting the parent into the bed or taking the parent out of the bed or putting them into a wheelchair and hurts their back. Say they rupture a disc. Now, we all know, or people that are in the personal injury area know, that a ruptured disc can be several millions of dollars. Now, there's two things. The state of Louisiana says that if you have an employee, it's a criminal offense not to have them covered with workman's comp. You've been treating that person as an independent contractor, so you don't have workman's comp insurance on them. So, and your homeowner's insurance probably doesn't give you any coverage. So now you may be looking at a very, very large liability that could wipe you out financially.
If you're not wiped out already. Scary, really scary. So what you're telling us is that most people are failing to plan for government benefits, and that's what has to happen?
Well, that's the third thing that they don't do. They don't plan for government benefits. And by this is, you know, we all love our parents, or if you take your parent into your home, quite obviously you have some love and affection for them. And you're doing this because you love them. However, the Department of Health and Hospitals allows the parent to pay you for that care. And if you're not doing that, then you're making a gift to the state of Louisiana every day that you do not seek that payment. Because why? Well, parent stays in the home, say they have a $50,000 and you're taking care of them and they keep their $50,000 and all of a sudden they have to go into a nursing home. That $50,000 has to be spent down. They could have been paying you $7,000 or $10,000 a month to take care of them while you were taking care of them in their home or your home. So what you've done is you've made a gift to the state.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today. If you need someone who understands the puzzle of putting together all the different programs and issues that you or your parents are faced with, you need an expert in elder law. Losavio and DeJean has the knowledge and credentials to simplify these difficult times for you. They've prepared a brochure for you on the 7 common mistakes people make when applying for government benefits, and a brochure on applying for Veterans Affairs benefits. Please call their offices for free copies of the brochures at 225-769-4200 or visit their website at www.losaviodejean.com. That's it for this edition of Ask the Lawyer. I'm Carissa Farley, and we'll see you next time.